So today we're going to be talking about how to follow your dreams without feeling selfish. Like, are you actually allowed to love yourself? I think some of you really need to hear this right now. God is for you. God cares about you, and it doesn't matter who is against you or who doesn't believe in you. You've got to find that love in him, and you've got to find it from yourself as well. The very fact that God loves you should give you permission to love yourself. And we have to stop thinking that, well, if you love yourself, you're being selfish or you're being vain. I had people in my life tell me, like, when I wanted to start eating healthier, when I wanted to start eating more fruits and vegetables, when I decided to become vegan, they told me I was being vain and selfish because I didn't want to eat all this junk food anymore that I knew was bad for my health. So, people are going to say whatever they're going to say, and you have to do what is right for you. So, yeah, some people do take it to the extreme. Some people love themselves in a way that is totally self-consuming or selfish. But I know that's not you. You wouldn't be here right now if you were the type of person that was vain and selfish and just wanted only everything for you. You wouldn't be trying to learn and improve yourself like you are. So, if your love that you have for others and yourself is rooted and grounded in God and what He has done for you, then something that you can't be doing is you can't be putting yourself down and hating yourself, because you are one of God's loved and cherished creations. And I know some people won't like you, and that's okay. Some people didn't even like Jesus. They hated him. They hated him enough to plot his death. So I tell you that because you're not going to get everyone's approval. Everyone is not going to like you. Even if you did everything right, even if you brought world peace, even if you fixed the economy, not everyone is going to like you. So we don't have to worry about what other people think of us. And I need you guys to quit basing your happiness and your worth on how other people think of you. It really should be dependent on what God thinks of you and what you think of yourself. So, you know, if someone is saying something against you, um, and they're it's making you feel terrible and it's sending you on this downward spiral, it's not how to live your life. Let people have their opinions, just let them have their opinions, and you base yours on what God thinks and feels about you. I used to live my life all upset and about what other people thought of me. And if I put more weight on their opinion of me than I did on God's opinion of me. And you're going to live up to whatever you think of yourself. So it's time that you just start deciding, I'm going to love myself, even if other people are mean, even if I'm not perfect, even if I get it wrong, even if I mess up, even if someone breaks up with me, even if I don't get that job, or even if I get fired. I'm going to love me because I know I'm doing the best I can and God loves me. Why do we think that we are just supposed to love everybody else and then put ourselves down and treat ourselves like second-class citizens? You're a child of the Most High God. You know, you are sons and daughters of the King. So do not put yourself down just because other people put you down. They can't hurt you unless you let them, unless you give in to them, unless you believe what they're saying. And you don't have to believe it. Just because somebody says something doesn't make it the truth. It's just their opinion. And if you have a dream in your heart and you have a purpose and you're trying to make the world a better place and you're trying to do good and you're trying to follow God, and at the same time, doing what makes you happy is okay. There's something to be said about that. More people should follow their happiness. They should follow their bliss. You imagine how much better the world would be if people were happy? Happy people don't go around committing crimes, you know? There's nothing wrong with wanting to follow your dreams. And if you're a believer and you pray and you obey God and you allow Him to shape and mold your life, wow, you're going to have some dreams because God put dreams in your heart. And we don't always have to be this suffering servant who's just settling. right? Who's just, it's all about everybody else, and we're not allowed to have any joy or happiness. We always just put everyone else first. How you show up in the world, did you know that that shapes others' opinions about God? Do you realize that? When you're happy, that's one of the things that attracts unbelievers, people who don't believe in God. They get attracted to you by the light you carry, by the happiness you have. And it's amazing to witness. Do you guys know about Solomon, who was the richest man that ever lived and the wisest man? His he was so famous even before, even before they had social media, any of that stuff. He was super famous, and people came from all over the world just to see if it's true, if all the rumors were true. And at one time, the Queen of Sheba came to visit King Solomon and see, like, is it really true that everyone around him is happy and that he's so rich and he's so wise? And you read about this in First Kings chapter 10, all these things that left the Queen of Sheba in awe. And one of them was that even the officials and his servants who worked for Solomon were happy. And that caused this Queen of Sheba to give praise to God. So when people see that you're happy and you're fulfilled and you're just loving God and following after your dreams, that attracts people because not a lot of people in the world are happy. So even people who seemingly have it all, even people that you see on social media with the big houses and the fancy cars and this and that, a lot of them are not happy. And they may not even be following their dreams anymore. They may have started to, but now it's just kind of like paint by numbers. They're just dialing it in. They're not really there. They just feel like, oh, I have to keep doing this thing because that's how I got this wealth or that's how I got this riches. So back to the Queen of Sheba. Here's what it says in verses 4 through 9. When the Queen of Sheba saw all the wisdom of Solomon and the palace he had built, the food on his table, the seating of his officials, the attending of the servants in their robes, the cupbearers, and the burnt offerings that he made at the temple for the Lord, she was overwhelmed. She said to the king, "The report I heard in my own country about your achievements and your wisdom is true, but I didn't believe these things until I saw them with my own eyes. Indeed, not even half was told to me. In the wisdom, in the wealth you have, far exceeds the report I heard." And here's the part I want to drive home to you guys today. In verse 8, it says, "How happy your people must be. How happy your officials who constantly stand before you and hear your wisdom. Praise be to the Lord your God." See, it wasn't even her God. She didn't even serve the God Solomon served, but because she saw the wealth and the wisdom and the happiness that even the people who worked for him were happy. How many times do you hear your coworkers grumble, employees being like, no, they're mad at the boss, or they think that they should get less hours, or this person is doing that and that person grumbling. Imagine even the people who work for you, even the lowest of jobs, like the servants, are happy. That causes people to see you're doing something right. You must really have God in your life. And this Queen of Sheba, she said, "Praise be the Lord your God." She didn't say, "Praise be the Lord my God." She didn't even know the God he served. So she said, "Praise be the Lord your God, who has delighted in you and placed you on the throne of Israel." Even people who don't believe what you believe are going to see when you are walking in your calling and your purpose and you're happy. Outsiders can even see, wow, God did this for you. God put you in this place. Wow, maybe I need to know this God that you serve. She said, "This God delighted in you and placed you on the throne of Israel because of the Lord's love for Israel. He has made you king to maintain justice and righteousness." What does this mean for you? Well, your happiness, you being happy and fulfilled and following your dreams, whether you're like Angela, who's got a song in her heart and she sings. And when she's down, she sings praises to God. Whatever, maybe you're a painter, maybe you paint and that's what brings you joy. I'm a poet. You guys know I do poetry and that makes me happy. We all have things inside us that we do that God has placed in us. And when we let them out and when others are getting joy from it and we're getting joy from it and people around us are affected, that is a huge witness. So when people see you happy, when they see you thriving, and sometimes you don't even have to speak about God. You don't have to even be talking about God all the time because how you live your life and the joy that you have in your countenance, that speaks volumes. If you go around with a grumpy face and say, I'm happy, God is good, I'm happy, no one's going to really believe you because your words don't match your countenance. So when this happened and the Queen of Sheba saw all this, it says different commentaries and stuff that I read about the Queen of Sheba after visiting King Solomon. It said the Queen of Sheba, she converted to Judaism after visiting the King of Solomon. So you don't know if you're loving the Lord and you're living your best life. Sometimes that's going to cause people to turn to God without you having to like preach at them and bark at them and or quote all the scriptures to them. Because when you're miserable, like when I was miserable, when I was depressed, I wasn't following my dreams and I wasn't kind to people. And I certainly wasn't kind to myself because I wasn't happy. I was sad and I was miserable for a long time. And if you're stuck in that place, if that's where you feel you are right now, just know that God can change things around for you like that. He can change things in a moment when you surrender and you give yourself to him and you say, okay, God, whatever you want for my life, let's do it. And God brings you so much joy and peace when you surrender. When you surrender to what things are supposed to look like. But God, I'm supposed to, at this point, I'm 30 now, and I'm supposed to have, a wonderful marriage and a nice house and a college degree and 2.5 kids. Don't worry about what it's supposed to look like. God has a different path for every single one of us. And we're not supposed to compare ourselves because nobody is going to look the same. Nobody's life is supposed to look the same. God has a different path and trajectory for each of us. And this is coming from someone who used to be severely depressed. When I let God into my life and let him take control, he filled me with such joy. And that's the main comment I get from people nowadays. They're like, wow, you have so much joy. And that's a complete shift and turnaround. If you guys knew me back in the day when I was super depressed, I mean, I've written about it a lot. I used to write all these depressing poems about hating myself and not wanting to live. And I'm just in a completely different place because I decided it doesn't have to look the way people on social media said it should look like, the way that the world thinks it's supposed to look like. And I was just like, okay, God, what do you want from me in my life? And I'm going to be happy following my heart and my following after the things God put in my heart more appropriately. So, what makes you happy? So, recently I was going out of town. I was driving and I was so excited to get away. I was just driving on the open road out through the desert. I'm listening to my audiobooks and my thoughts, were just like, wow, this is so great to be able to get away, to be able to do things on my own terms, to not have to worry about the kids for a few days. And so we're talking today about loving yourself and following your dreams without feeling like you're being selfish. And as I was driving to Las Vegas for this speaking conference, it was the coolest thing because I didn't feel guilty. And in the past, I would have felt guilty about leaving my kids behind. Oh, they're with dad. I should really be there for them. In the past, I would have felt that way, like, oh, I'm being selfish. And don't get me wrong, I love being a mom and a wife and doing everything that I do, but sometimes I just need a break and I need some time away to reflect and not run after the demands of everybody else. And are you doing that? Are you scheduling enough time for yourself to give you the break that you need to have the time to think about what you're passionate about and what brings you joy and to work on perfecting some of the skills and gifts and talents God has given you? So as I was driving, I was thinking to myself, wow, I am in such a good mood. And I recognized, like, I was at the gas station and I was smiling at people and I was holding the door open for people and was like, I'm on my way to do something I love, to learn how to be a better speaker. And, when you are doing everything for everyone else all the time and you don't schedule time away to do what you love, you get emptied, you get dry. You have to have that time of refreshing to fill yourself back up because you're not going to be happy otherwise. And of course, it's not all about, oh, I'm only going to do what's happy in my life. We do have responsibilities and other things to take care of, but we don't have to let our goals and dreams go away, be pushed away forever just because everyone else has needs. And of course, that's a lesson for another day because I could go deep on teaching you, you know, when to do the catering to others and when to pull back. And that's a skill I had to learn too. I had to break free from the people pleasing. And that's coming up in my uh, You Are Worthy Level 2 advanced course. I do a whole teaching on being a God pleaser rather than a people pleaser. So schedule time away. Do what you love. Don't get empty dry because you're not going to be happy. And I suggest if God put a dream in your heart, why aren't you following it? Why are you not doing that? Because that's part of fulfilling your mission in life. Yes, we're here to um, serve God and love others, but there's also a third part, and that's fulfilling the purpose God put us here for. And it's not selfish to do that. So when you feel miserable, when you feel like you're trapped by other people's opinions, like I used to, then you're not nice to people, not on purpose, not because you're trying to be mean, but when you're miserable, it comes out. So people who are following their dreams, they have more joy even when they're not being successful, even when they're failing at their dreams, they're being successful because they're like, look, I'm trying. I'm trying to get this record recorded. I'm trying to break my 500-yard dash. I'm trying to achieve this thing. They're doing something towards what they love. And I was reflecting back on like the last 2 decades I've spent in Hollywood pursuing an acting career, and I realized pursuing this dream of mine, even if I don't look successful by someone else's standards, even if I haven't reached the top of the mountain because I haven't worked with super, super famous people, or I haven't been in super, super big budget blockbuster films, I'm happy that I took a chance on myself. I'm happy that I believed in myself enough and my calling that I felt God put on my life to give it a try, to move out of my little small town, to come to this big city, to try to, make something of myself. That in itself is a huge accomplishment that I didn't stay stuck in my safe job, working on an assembly line in a factory, being robotic and unfulfilled. And I'm not saying anybody who works on a factory is going to be unfulfilled, robotic, but when you know there's a different, deeper, or bigger calling, you do feel that way. If you're not in alignment with what you feel like God created you for, there's a disconnect. You're just unfulfilled. Now, some people are called to you know do the assembly line kind of life, and that's their calling, their mission. They're good at it. They're being a witness to people around them. That's awesome. All I'm saying is you got to go if you know there's a higher level, a deeper place, something that you're not stepping into because you're scared and you want to stay safe. I'd ask you to rethink that because when God is with you, all things are possible. And you know what? If people would just follow their dreams and their happiness, the whole world would be a better place. If you think about it, those who go around committing crimes are not happy. You don't see people on the news who are filled with joy that are robbing liquor stores or drunk driving and hurting people or getting in fights. They're not filled with joy. A lot of them are angry because they feel trapped, because they feel unfulfilled, because they don't know what else to do to get their emotions out or to take care of their needs. And, a lot of them don't have a relationship with God or they're not pursuing their purpose. Now, when I was unhappy, I caught myself a couple of times being rude to people. And I didn't want to be a jerk, but it came out because I felt trapped and I had no joy because I was unfulfilled. So why aren't you going after what makes you happy? You are allowed to love yourself. You are allowed to follow your dreams without feeling selfish. And yes, we have responsibilities, but it doesn't mean you can't follow your dreams, no matter what other people think. And yes, people are going to have judgments about you and what they think you should be doing. But if God put a dream in your heart, it's your duty to follow it, no matter what other people think. Now, I had friends and relatives that thought I was crazy for moving to Hollywood and pursuing an acting career. And I still have friends and relatives that think, well, now that you're a mom, you should only stay home and you shouldn't be running around all the time, going to all these acting gigs and speaking events. You should never have any dreams or purposes outside of your family and being a mom, and that's your everyday job now. And some people get their whole identity wrapped up in being that mom or being that husband, being the provider, taking care of everything, and baking the perfect cookies to show off at the PTA meetings for the other moms, fundraisers, having these perfect birthday parties with matching themes and plates and whatever people deem to be doing, bringing certain presents. And you know what? That in itself can be a prison, trying to fit into a box that other people say you should be in to look perfect. But if that's not the dream you have, you don't have to do everything perfectly, you know? You just do your best. And I realize I'm not, I go to different parties and I go, wow, wouldn't it be cool if I had that, if I had this at different parties? But that's not my calling. I'm not like my mom. She sets the perfect table. She has the perfect, like, she would never put something plastic on the table. She's got these, crystal serving bowls and the perfect silverware. And I invite people over and we're eating off paper plates and plastic spoons. And because I don't want to do all the dishes after. So, I cannot measure up to my mom who's got everything perfectly decorated and just everything is precise. We're all different and we should never compare ourselves to other people. And you know what? Going after your dreams also doesn't mean that you don't have love for other people. It doesn't mean that you don't love your family or care about what's important to them. Yet at the same time, you can love them without putting all of your hopes and dreams and what's important to you on the back burner forever, just to please everybody all the time. So there's ways to do both and to have both. There were times when Timothy was little, I had to bring him to auditions with me. Sometimes I'd have to take him to movie sets and hope he would be quiet when we were filming because I didn't have the money for a daycare. I didn't have a caregiver, and my husband was at work. So sometimes there's different sacrifices. That doesn't mean that I was like not being a good mom to him. I was actually exposing him to different things and different people and expanding his knowledge more than if we were just sitting at home together. So he got to have different experiences and I got to do what was fulfilling me. There's a way to have both. So I had to be able to drop the guilt and the lying voice of the accuser that was telling me that I was being selfish for loving myself or pursuing my dreams. Matthew chapter 22, one of the Pharisees asked Jesus, "What is the most important commandment?" Now, they didn't really want to know. They were saying this because they were trying to trap him. But Jesus answered in verses 37 through 39, and he said, Love the Lord love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. But then he gave a second one. He said the second is like it, and it's to love your neighbor as you love yourself. And a lot of people forget that second part. The second part is love your neighbor as you love yourself. Now, I do a whole deep teaching and training on this in the You Are Worthy course, which I don't have time to get into now, but I'm just going to point out one part of this. And when it says to love your neighbor as you love yourself, then loving yourself is not selfish, right? It's not selfish to take care of yourself. We are never loving yourself doesn't mean you don't ever do anything good for yourself or take care of yourself and your health and your goals. That's not what God intended for us, right? God didn't intend for you to love your neighbor as yourself in only do good things for your neighbor, but never anything good to yourself, because that's not loving your neighbor as you love yourself. So if you would do good things for your neighbor, you should do good things for yourself. If you would feed them good things, you should feed yourself good things. If you wouldn't force them to work 24/7 and not take a break, then why are you forcing yourself to work 24/7 and not take a break? So here's a verse in Psalms that is kind of on track with this. Psalm 37:4 says, "Delight yourself in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart." If God didn't want you to have the things you desire, why would he give them to you? Right? But it starts with delighting yourself in him. Same as the verse before, which is loving God with all your heart, mind, and soul. You delight yourself in God, he'll give you the desires of your heart. So it's not even mentioning your neighbor in this verse in Psalm. It's saying you delight yourself in God and he'll give you the desires of your heart. It's not saying he's going to bless your neighbor, but and not you, and you just have to be happy watching them be blessed, but you don't get anything you want. And sometimes we think, oh, as a servant of God, I just have to suffer and I get to watch everyone else be blessed, and maybe, please God, someday it'll be our turn. No, that's not how it works, right? 3 John 2, God says, "Beloved, I wish above all things that you would prosper and be in good health, even as your soul prospers." God doesn't say, "I wish above all things that everybody but you prospers and is in good health." No. God cares about you just as much as he cares about your neighbor, just as much as he cares about someone that you think is higher up than you. God cares about you just as much as he does the Sunday school teacher or the pastor or the priest or whoever you're thinking is more holy than you. He cares about you just as much. God made all of us unique and he loves us all. And you are allowed to love yourself. And that doesn't make you selfish. It doesn't make you vain for taking care of yourself or doing what makes you happy. I mean, it's going to make you a better person to be around. Who wants to be around someone crabby who's unfulfilled and angry and mad and they're doing everything for everyone else and they never get anything? You are in charge of scheduling your life. If you're not happy, then you can't blame that on anyone else. You can't say, well, my family, they just want me to do all this for them. Well, that may be true, but you still have a choice, right? You still have autonomy over yourself and your choices and your decisions. And you can say, yes, family, I will help you do the dishes. I will go grocery. I'll do all those things for you. But then when I get home, I'm going to spend an hour in my room working on my drawing, or working on my sketches, or writing my song, or learning the piano, or whatever it is that you feel you're called to, reading your mechanic book, or working on your engine. You have to be the one to schedule this time, because if you don't, here's the thing. This is another reason why you can't blame other people. If you don't respect your time, they're not going to respect your time. And you are always training people how to treat you by what you allow yourself to do. And if you don't put yourself first, nobody else is going to. So, and I don't mean like first all the time, like it's all about me, I'm the only all important one. But if you're loving your neighbor as you love yourself, then you're going to have equal time. You know what? I'll help you with your kids this week if you help me with my kids next week. Let's get in a relationship where I'll help you for 3 hours, but then I need an hour or two to myself to do my thing, right? So you're going to be a better person to be around. And if you're taking care of yourself, you're going to live longer. Like we see our friend Daniel on here is just eating oranges. That's good for his health. If he felt like, oh, I can't have any oranges, I have to save these all for my family, and then he's eating junk food like Pop-Tarts or sausages or whatever, that's not helping him. So, take care of yourself the way you would take care of somebody that you love, that doesn't make you vain or selfish. And your happiness is going to mean you're going to be a better person to be around, as I mentioned. You've got to pursue what drives you to get out of bed each morning. You don't have to just be a slave to everyone else's demands. We are to be a blessing to others. And yeah, that does mean sometimes we are a servant. We are pouring out ourselves. But if you do that to the exclusion of everything else that makes you happy and healthy, like, I don't know if you know this, but statistically, people who are caregivers, they have a shorter life expectancy. When you're constantly caring for someone else all the time, that can cut years off your own life, especially when you're not making time for you. Has anyone else noticed, um, if you've been to a hospital lately, have you noticed how many nurses are overweight? They're busy sometimes 12, 14 hours a day caring for everyone else and not having time or making time to exercise, and not, they're just on the go to help everybody all day long. They maybe don't have time to a half an hour to eat a salad. They're like scarfing down a burger, and a lot of times those of us who are the most giving to others, we put our health on the back burner, and that's not what's intended by that. It's not intended for us to put our health and our well-being and our happiness on the back burner just to help others. Okay, so I want you guys to have a nice balance, and I want to encourage you, go beyond other people's expectations of you. Your boss may expect certain things and you may have to do certain things, but that doesn't mean to let them pull everything out of you and not have any time for you, right? To do something good for yourself every now and then, and to not feel bad or guilty about it. And you know what? If other people have a problem with it, that's their problem. You don't need to take that on and let them get you upset, say, "Oh, you don't deserve that." You let them feel angry if they want to feel angry, but you do what's right for you. Do something good for yourself. And remember 1 Corinthians 6 or 19 and 20, it says, Do you not know? Do you not know that your body is a temple of the Holy Spirit within you, whom you have from God? You are not your own. You were bought with a price. So glorify God in your body. So you not getting enough sleep because you're serving everyone else, you not eating healthy because you think, oh, I'm just going to save the good food for other people, whatever it is. It's saying here, do you not know your body's a temple of the Holy Spirit? You've got to get your rest. You've got to get your proper nutrition. That's like God gave you your body. Respect it by feeding it properly, by resting it properly, by getting the exercise you need. If people don't like that you're taking extra time to make your salads or make your smoothies or go on your meditative prayer walks or anything that makes you happier or healthier, especially if it's not hurting them or taking away from them, then you know what? That's their problem. And it's none of your business if they have a problem with you. You've got to do what God would want you to do, and that's taking care of yourself. Yes, you're taking care of others, but you would take care of yourself too. So I'm giving you guys permission to go out and do something today for yourself, something that makes you happy, and watch how much better, not only that you will feel, but that you'll be better to be for people around you. Because when you're not pouring out of an empty cup, when you've refilled and refreshed yourself with your passions, you're going to have so much more to give to people around you and more love to give and contribute to the world around you.